Hi, my name is Sheila Hill. I'm an intuitive life coach and a spiritual guide. Today's video, you don't have to dig. And I did this video this morning on TikTok and I was going to transfer it over, but man, the questions and the conversations that are unfolding, I wanted to bring it together for you here on YouTube as sort of one package rather than uploading a bunch of little scrambled videos. So the title, You Don't Have to Dig. This was rooted in an email that I woke up to this morning from a client asking if I would be willing to do hypnotherapy or if I had someone that I could refer to her in order for her to get to the root of a memory as a part of her inner healing, trauma healing, reprogramming, ascension, whatever we want to call this work that we're doing. So here's my answer. My answer to her is, you do not need to dig. This is a culmination ascension lifetime. And in that, your now moment is always showing you exactly what it is that is next in the queue for you to clear. So if you are deeply conscious and aware of yourself in every now moment, and observing yourself and aware of your triggers, your beliefs, your perceptions of reality, your triggers, then that is the instruction set for what it is that you need to clear. You don't need to go back into your memories from your childhood or past life regression in order to recapture these memories or events as they occurred, when they occurred, in order to understand them today, in order to clear them. So just to be clear, your beliefs about yourself, your perception of reality, and your reactions to events as they occur in your life are the instruction set for what consciousness it is that is next in the queue for you to clear. You don't need to go back to the scene of the crime, metaphorically, or in your imagination through hypnosis, in order to capture the ingredients of what it was that put that consciousness in you in the first place. We don't need to go back to your childhood in order to do inner child healing. I don't remember my childhood, very much of it. And I have clients that often say to me, Sheila, how can I do inner child work when my childhood is an absolute blank? Because you don't need the ingredients of who you were and how old you were and what dress you were wearing or what toy you were playing with the day the thing happened that put the trauma in you in the first place. It's consciousness, and it is a consciousness that has been speaking to you and bleeding through you in every now moment for your whole life. So we observe what are the triggers and what is the consciousness. And then we heal the consciousness at its root. We don't need to go back to the scene of the crime in order to heal the whole story, the whole package. So I want to unpack this a little bit, and I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey of the conversations that played out. We don't need to go back to the scene of the crime. We're just calling it the scene of the crime because it's just a good way to remember what we're talking about here. Those ingredients at a soul level, the who did the bad, how old you were, how you perceived the event, what it smelled like, looked like, sounded like, all of the ingredients that created that was more than likely divinely created by your soul in order to implant or imprint a certain consciousness into you so that you could make the hero's journey back to healed and whole during this lifetime. The event may have happened in this lifetime. It may have happened in what we call a past life. It may be both. but it is just consciousness. It is a program within your computer system that was imprinted so that you could heal it. And it will always show up as an echo or a bleed through into your now, through the way that you perceive yourself, what you believe about yourself, how you perceive your reality, and what your reactions are. So if you just keep paying attention to the now, you don't need to go time traveling all over the place trying to recover memories and figure out who you were in a last life, who you were when you were 3, who did the thing that created the thing that made the thing into a thing for you. You don't need to do all of that. We are getting the intel. We are being shown if you are conscious and aware enough to observe yourself in every now moment. So the other piece to this conversation was that someone came into the comments and said to me, but if you don't have the memory, then how can you get to the root? If without the memory, then how do you get to the root of when that consciousness or that seed was planted in the first place? So the conversation then becomes around the root of the scene of the crime versus the root of the consciousness that is at play. So again, I still stand. We don't need to go back in time, in your imagination, in your memories, in order to recover anything. And I'm going to explain why in a minute. What we want to do is get to the root of the consciousness that is at play. That's the root we want to get to. So sharing a metaphorical example, I'm making this up. Someone comes to me and says, when I do this, I go to this place or I spend time with this person, I go into fear. And I go, okay, tell me about that. We want to keep the ego on board at all times because the ego will just create resistance with anything that it doesn't understand. So there's no point in trying to bypass the ego. We're going to keep that on board while we do our healing. So tell me the stories. Tell me the stories around the person that triggers you, the place that triggers you, what you believe the trigger is, what consciousness it is, how do you feel, how does your body react? Give it to me. Give it all to me. So we do that. And that is sort of entertaining the ego. Again, we want to keep the ego on board because if it doesn't understand, it'll go into resistance and then the healing can't happen. What is the consciousness? If the client says, I don't know, then we ask, if you did know, what do you think it might be? It's always a good question to use. You use that with your kids too. If it comes out that it's fear, for example, then we unpack fear until we get to its root. Okay, so we understand that these places, these people, these things trigger you. And the stories that the ego tells around these events or these things, and the consciousness is fear. What is the story of the fear? For example, the response may be, fear is telling me that I am not safe. Fear makes me feel like I'm out of control. Fear makes me feel abandoned. Fear makes me feel like I'm going to unalive. Whatever it is, let's unpack the fear. We don't just stop at the consciousness's fear because that could have a myriad of roots. Again, we're not going back to the scene of the crime where it originally came from. We're dealing with it in the now, so we can clear it in the now. We get really clear on what the root is. The root is feeling out of control. The fear of being out of control is an ego concept. Where's that coming from? Well, no, the real root is that I feel not safe and abandoned. There's what the root of the fear is. Okay, so now what we do is we sacredly and deeply be with the aspect of you that is being brought into vulnerability, that we are calling fear, which is actually abandonment, or the wounds and traumas around not feeling safe. That is what is active in the body right now. So we be with that. However that looks, I'm walking you through this so you can do it with yourself. However that looks, could be deep breathing, could be imagination where you meet that aspect of you. It could be affirmations. It could be a myriad of things that you may choose to do in order to fully, sacredly, and compassionately meet that version of you, however you choose to do it. And then we make counter or opposite behaviors around those triggers in order to rewrite the program. And the opposite counteractions, they may be just baby steps at first, or maybe you'll be able to do a big quantum leap. It will all depend on how the body and the nervous system responds to this counteractivity. So if the counteractivity is, I get thrown into fear when I go into a grocery store, then can we get you to the grocery store, making conscious breaths, being with that aspect of you, and have you buy one thing? So on and so forth. You're getting the gist. So this is what I'm talking about as far as the root. Because this is an ascension lifetime and it's a culmination of all lifetimes, we have available to us to take the reins of where the echoes and bleed-throughs are coming from and to send the healing back through the quantum field to those other aspects of ourselves, while those aspects are also dying off and culminating into you, the one that is ascending. So we're in a feedback loop back and forth with our other fractals. We don't need to get to the root or the scene of the crime of how that consciousness first got imprinted in order to heal it. We need to just be conscious and aware of it at its root, in its truth, and then make counter behaviors. So the rest of the conversation that then was brought to the fore is a little known fact about me is that I am trained in hypnotherapy, but I rarely ever do it because I do hold a firm belief that the ego needs to be a part of this process. In order for it to divulge itself of the reins or to let go of the steering wheel in your life, it needs to understand on some level what is happening, or it will throw up resistance. It is sort of the guard at the door of your healing process, so best we just bring it along. There is something within the domain of hypnosis, and I believe it's called timeline therapy. And this is where we would take a patient or a client through their linear chronological life in their imagination as the observer to the scene of the crime, in order to recapture the memories, the ingredients, the who did what did it look like, smell like, feel like when the trauma was initially embedded into the body. So here is my take on this, and it is just my opinion. The unconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and imagination. So what this means is anytime you are in a trance-like state, and it happens multiple times throughout the day, you could be driving your car, fall into trance, that autopilot, witness a vehicle accident, and your body, because it can't discern between what is real and what is imaginary, your body will perceive that it happened to you. When you are watching television and you maybe watch a horror movie or something, or there's some visual that comes across the screen, if you are not in a conscious, aware observer state, but you are in a trance-like state, then your imagination, your unconscious, will believe that whatever it is you have just witnessed happened to you. This is why, to a great extent, the 3D inverted matrix uses visuals in order to keep us hooked. Because if we can be dumbed down, for lack of a better word, kept in an autopilot trance-like state, and then be bombarded with visuals of things that are happening in the world that may not be happening to you, then they keep your body in a state of fight or flight, believing that all of these visuals have actually happened. I got on a bit of a tangent there, but it's an important piece to understand, and this was a good video to put it in. So, back to the timeline therapy, or the idea around recovering memories or recovering past lives. We as the practitioner have no way of knowing with certainty how long or to what degree our client is able to hold that observer state. If they get to the scene of the crime, the recovered memory, the initiation point where the embedded imprint of the trauma and the consciousness was first put in, and they drop out of that observer mode, the door between the conscious and the unconscious is open. And again, the unconscious does not know the difference between what is real and what is imagination. So we run the risk of reactivating and then layering on another traumatic event back into the body at that point. Because if they drop out of observer mode, then now they're active in it and the unconscious can't discern. So then the unconscious thinks and tells the body it's happened again. So this is why the gift of this lifetime being a culmination point, and why I believe that unless the memory or the inception point of the consciousness that you are trying to heal is readily and easily available to you, we don't need to go digging. We don't need to be further traumatizing the body, the pain body. We don't need to be adding extra layers onto the nervous system. We don't need to be playing a game of what's imaginary and what's real with the unconscious. We can just laser focus right in on what is the consciousness that is being triggered, that is creating the belief you have about yourself, your perception of reality, and is creating the reaction that you are finding yourself in every now moment. Once we understand that consciousness and pull it down to its root, which fear could be abandonment, like we have to figure out what the root is, then it's available for us to continually just work at the root consciousness itself. We don't need to relive how it got there. It's a big topic. If you have questions around this or anything that you would like to share, go ahead and meet me in the comments. I hope this helps you. Until next time, bye for now.